Hello, reporter room investigators. Come on in. Come on in. We are talking about the Gabby Petito case. I just finished watching part one, part two, and part three in the new Netflix series. And I'm going to fill in a few things that the Netflix series did not tell you guys about. But there's also a lot of new revelations, particularly in part two and part three of the Netflix series. Originally, I was just going to do part one, but I may go further than that, just depending on time. For those of you that are looking for my Bryan Kohberger video, I moved that to day after tomorrow. It might be tomorrow, depending on depending on how it goes. Right now, there's nothing new to really share. So let me just. Okay. Thank you to our head mod Njaz. Please share this on your socials. I don't really have I don't know if I still have a following for Gabby Petito or not. I covered this case. It was one of the first cases I've covered, but it's been a while. Hey, Frank. Hi, Pam. Hi, Tracy. Yeah, we have a lot of stuff to dig into. I'm going to get started. People can join in if they want to, because there is so much stuff. And boy, I have to tell you, as awful as we thought Chris and Roberta were, you guys, it's worse. It is worse. And Cassie, the sister of Bryan Laundrie, she gets an Oscar for her good acting job because she had so many people fooled. But a lot of stuff came to light during this, particularly in episode 2 and episode 3. Episode 1 was kind of an overview for people who weren't familiar with the case. I'm going to give you the overview in case you don't know the case, so you can, be up with us on everything. And we do have some stuff and there's some stuff in episode 1 that I want to fill the gaps in on, but a lot of it in 2 and 3 was new stuff that we just didn't know when we were covering this case. So please share this on your socials. The purpose of, I believe, the Netflix documentary is to prevent DV from occurring. I'm watching my words. So today we're doing that deep dive into the Netflix series on Gabby Petito. Everything I'm sharing is my opinion. Opinions are not facts. So please don't send any negativity to anyone. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Do your own research. Everything I'm saying is alleged. So it's everything we thought we knew about Chris and Roberta Laundrie is way worse than we thought. What we thought we knew about Cassie, Bryan's sister, is worse than we thought. So watching episode 1 of the Netflix special with Gabby Petito was definitely interesting. I thought I was just going to watch episode 1 and be done. I didn't feel like there was a lot of new stuff for me in episode 1, so I went on to 2 and 3. But we did learn we did learn some new things. Bryan Laundrie, and there was some stuff that they didn't cover that I do want to talk about. But we learned about a Bryan Laundrie that we didn't know about before. We learned that he started balding in high school, and that his former classmates, she came on and said he seemed 10 years older than everybody else. We also learned how Gabby ended up living with Roberta and Chris in Northport, Florida. So Gabby and Bryan moved down to Florida together. And right when they got there, NICHOL Schmidt, that's Gabby's mom, she said that Bryan's mom was nice to Gabby. She was like knitting Gabby's things. But later she said that Roberta got nastier. And after seeing this, I believe it. I absolutely believe it. She said that Roberta got nasty with Gabby. She even said that that Gabby's mom got a message from the United States Post Office that Gabby had changed her address from the Northport address in Florida, where she lived with Chris and Roberta, back to Gabby's mom's house. And Gabby's mom, NICHOL, called her to say, "Oh, are you coming back, or did you change your address?" She didn't. Gabby didn't change her address. She thought Roberta did it. I think Roberta did it too. Roberta gives me big time Cindy Watts vibes, big time. So I thought that was really shady. Allegedly, don't come for me. I know these people have lawyers. If you don't know who I am, I'm Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects, and share with you how to do the same thing. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Like, share, leave a comment. And let's get started. Okay, so I already CYA'd myself. So, I do hope that we can raise awareness for DV. I do think that's really important. It is a cycle. And, hopefully what happened to Gabby can save somebody else. That's what her parents hope. For people who think that her parents, this is somehow taking advantage of them, this is their vehicle. They have the Gabby Petito Foundation, which is they have used all of the money that they've raised to help other people survive what Gabby went through. So if something seems off to you and you're in a relationship that just doesn't feel right, trust your gut and take a big giant step back. So we start off hearing from Rose, that's Gabby's friend. She describes going out with Gabby. They go dancing, but she said on one of the nights that Gabby was headed over to her house, they were supposed to go line dancing at a country place. She said that Gabby was on her way and that her ID was not in Gabby's wallet. And Gabby believed that Bryan took it. So Bryan definitely comes across as manipulative um, and controlling in that he didn't want Gabby to go line dancing with Rose. So he just took her ID out of her wallet. And, Gabby ends up crying and apologizing to Rose. And I feel like Gabby does a lot of crying and apologizing in her time that she spent on this earth with Brian Laundrie. Rose also talks about the nice things that Gabby does, and this is the cycle, right? This is the DV cycle. The nice things that Bryan would do for Gabby, and if people were horrible all the time, then people wouldn't stay. But people stay in these types of relationships. Maybe you've stayed in this type of relationship because there are good times and there are times when they're nice too. We also hear this weird story about how Bryan proposed to Gabby. Remember when I was covering the case, it was kind of like, are they engaged? Aren't they engaged? Because why doesn't she have a ring on if she's engaged? And we find out that he proposed to her out in the woods while they were camping. He didn't have a ring. And then a dragonfly landed on her ring finger, and they decided it was that the universe wanted them to be together. But what is really interesting about this is that Gabby didn't tell any of her family or friends that she was engaged to Bryan. So usually when people get engaged, they're excited and they tell their family and friends. But instead, NICHOL heard about it from a post that she saw on Roberta Laundrie, Brian Laundrie's mother's Facebook. That's how she found out. She called Gabby and asked about it. And Gabby was kind of like, yeah, well, she asked about the ring. And Gabby said they were going to get a ring. But they never did get a ring. So whether they were engaged or not, or if they got engaged and then Gabby changed her mind, we don't know. But I think it's interesting that Gabby chose not to tell her family and friends. And if we're noticing it, then Brian Laundrie for sure noticed it too. They show some of Brian Laundrie's artwork. I've already covered that on my channel when I was doing the Gabby Petito case. It's weird, and he's weird, in my opinion. So Gabby gets the van. It's her money. She's working at Taco Bell 50 hours a week. It's her money. She raised the money. It was her goal to go on this van life trip. And we find out from Jackson, her ex-boyfriend, that they had talked about going on this van life trip together as well. And I'm going to talk about more about Jackson. And boy, do I have a lot to say about Cassie Laundrie, Roberta Laundrie, and Chris Laundrie. But let me just give you the overview a little bit. Okay, so because there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot. So Gabby gets the van. She wants to be a content creator. She wants to be on Instagram. She wants to be on YouTube. She started the YouTube. The image I have up right now is from Gabby's YouTube page. And it was so nice to hear Gabby speaking in the Netflix video. When we're the only speaking I had really heard when I was covering Gabby, besides a few sentences here and there, was from that Moab traffic stop. And then she's crying. She's not she's going through this terrible time. It's not her normal self. It was nice to hear her speaking and talking normally. They did have some new videos that we haven't seen before. So Gabby wanted to be a YouTuber and travel. And that's how she was picturing, I think, this van life trip to be. In contrast, I think Bryan was picturing getting Gabby away from all her friends because she was going out at night. She was working 50 hours a week. And then she's, 21, 22 years old. She's hanging out with her friends after work. I think he was picturing getting her away from her friends, from her work life, and having her all to himself. Whereas she was picturing getting a YouTube channel started, which is, a tremendous amount of work. So yeah, wait till I tell you about Chris and Roberta Laundrie. Wait till I tell you about Steve Bertolino, and wait till I tell you about Brian's sister, Cassie. She deserves an Oscar for her performance It's all worse than we ever knew, you guys. So we hear the story about Bryan trying to manipulate Gabby, even by reaching out to Gabby's mom, NICHOL, to tell on her. Bryan's kind of a tattletale. He's telling NICHOL that Gabby's hanging out late into the evening with her friends after work. And so he's trying to pit Gabby's mother, NICHOL, against her daughter, in my opinion. And I think he did this with his own mother, Roberta. And that's why Roberta's attitude toward Gabby changed. Or maybe Roberta's just like that. But this is the thing about when people say bad things about you. It's people that are willing to believe the bad things about you, that says more about them than it does you. So it's called triangulation when somebody with narcissistic tendencies tries to divide you from other people. They whisper bad things, and you never know. You can't defend yourself because you don't even know that it was being said. But I do believe that Bryan was showing classic narcissistic tendencies. I'm using this as an adjective. I think he was very manipulative. I think he was very controlling. So he goes behind Gabby's back to try to pit her own mother against her. It doesn't work out for him. And then we get this glimpse from Gabby's diary, and they reanimated Gabby's voice using technology. And we find out that Bryan's been crying and calling her names, and Gabby's asking him to stop. So of course he's crying because he's the victim, right? He's Darvo. He's completely turned the story around. So Gabby has to apologize to Bryan because he's calling her names because he's crying. So I feel bad for Gabby. I think she was like getting head tripped, living with his parents. I think she was isolated. Thank goodness she had her work friends. But you can see a lot of her text messages too. And this is very eye-opening. She tells Bryan, don't try to control me because it only makes me mad. And this again goes back to why no ring? Why did we never see a ring? Why did we never hear about marriage plans? And why did Gabby seem so intent on this van trip? I think this was like her trying to get away from Roberta and Chris. Laundrie, I think it was also her dream to be a content creator. So they drove the van up initially when they first started out on the trip to see Gabby's mom, NICHOL. And Gabby's mom describes giving Gabby $200, saying goodbye. And Gabby gives her, she said, the biggest hug. And she asks Bryan to take care of Gabby. And he says that he will. But NICHOL describes Bryan as being friendly, but kind of distant. And I just do think that Bryan was envisioning this van life trip to be very different from what Gabby was picturing. For Gabby, van life meant freedom, a new career. It meant being a social media influencer. For Bryan Laundrie, it meant having Gabby all to himself and getting away from everyone. So when these two visions, these two dreams of what this trip is going to be collide, I think it does cause conflict. I also think it's interesting seeing the clips from the beginning of the trip. And I just want to show you, let me just show you how nice the back of the van looks, how put together. Let me add this in. Let me just show you. I got pictures of everything to show you guys, but let me see. I have the back of the van in here somewhere. There it is right there. Okay, let me move myself. Okay, so you can see the back of the van. This is what it looked like on the, whoop. This is what the back of the van, and I'm going to show you, that's Chris and Roberta Laundrie. There's a close-up of Chris and Roberta Laundrie. They wore masks and hats and everything, so we couldn't really see what they looked like. But this is what they look like. So this is what the van looked like. You can see on your left side of the screen when you're facing the screen, that is what it looked like at the beginning of their trip. On the right is on the Moab police stop, and you can see how disheveled and cluttered the van looks. And I think the way that the van looks at the beginning of the trip versus the Moab stop, which I believe was 41 days into their trip, I think that is indicative of the relationship between Bryan and Gabby. I think that as time went on, their relationship began to be was disheveled, was completely a mess, just like the back of the van is in this. So let me add Gabby back here. So I am going to check in with chat, but I just want to go through some of this. But one of the things that struck me was, besides the physical deterioration of the van over time, over the 41 days, was just how comfortable Gabby was on camera. She's natural, she's vivacious, she's a natural talent, and I think she would have been very successful in her van life YouTube channel. I think Bryan, in contrast, looks uncomfortable and awkward on camera. It doesn't mean he wouldn't or couldn't have gotten more comfortable with time, but it just doesn't feel like he's interested in it. Just he looks sort of sour during a lot of the filming. Um, so the other thing is that we see is that social media is not reality. And what we're seeing from, a lot of these van lifers and people that take these kind of trips is a curated image of what we want them to what they want us to see. We're not seeing the time it takes to set up the camera, all the takes it takes to the takes they have to do when they say it wrong or they don't do it right, or the person that they're sitting next to is, sour or picking fights. We don't see the tension or the arguments that go on. We see a very curated image of the van life. So the latter half of the first part one of the Netflix series goes into the traffic stop at Moab, Utah, and that infamous 911 call that leads to that stop. And the 911 caller is clearly reporting seeing a man, I'm going to watch my words, tapping with an SL, a female. So Bryan was doing this to Gabby, and we don't know why, because neither Gabby or Bryan were forthcoming. We see images taken with Gabby's cell phone that she was bruised. And it's really sad that the way that the Moab police handled it the way that they did. I feel like they made a choice. Like, you could hear them on camera on their own body cam footage. Bryan is blaming Gabby for this, and Gabby is blaming Gabby. I think that was like one of the most heartbreaking things, was hearing Gabby blaming herself for what happened that day, even though we had the 911 caller clearly report it, that he was doing it to her. I'm watching my words. We've got Gabby, and we have Gabby crying uncontrollably, and we have Bryan calm and even laughing with law enforcement. One of the most disturbing things during the first episode one was that law enforcement turned it around on Gabby and turned Bryan into the victim. And we find out that Gabby is told to go pay $4 to $5 to take a shower and stay in the van alone. And they take Bryan, he says he doesn't have any money, so they take him to a hotel with air conditioning and TV where he can have a shower. And they're laughing with Bryan, and he gets to go free to a hotel. And get this, the hotel is it's a DV shelter hotel. And they put him in that hotel with the victims. And I just want to say, DV can go both ways. Men can be the victims of this as well. So we hear a female officer describing this as a silly argument, shouldn't, involve hurting each other, about Bryan having marks. Gabby's told she can pay for a shower. And when we cut to Gabby's mom, NICHOL, and she expresses that she told Gabby she was worried about Gabby staying in the van alone. And, and then Gabby is just sent out into the wherever, go pay $4 or $5 for the shower alone with the van. We did learn, and this I did not know. So this is what I want to fill in. So Bryan's taken to this hotel. Now at the this was not said in the Netflix documentary. And at the Moab police stop, the phone call witnessed the event of Bryan tapping with an SL Gabby at the Moonflower grocery. It's like a co-op grocery store. And the cashier there is named Kylan Schulte. And Kylan and Crystal disappear around the same time that Bryan's put up overnight in this hotel with DV survivors, which is just a couple of minutes down the road. Now, Bryan knew somebody called 911 on him, but I don't know if he knew who. Now, what happened to Kylan and Crystal, because they were done away with in this small little town in Moab, was blamed on a homeless man. And, and maybe it was a homeless man, but I will always wonder, just knowing what I learned in episode 3 about Bryan being told to camp away from Gabby, that she was going to stay. They had agreed to separate on the night that she was done away with, knowing that he probably crept back into her campsite and did what he did. Watching my words. Makes me wonder if Kylan would not have been a target for Bryan if he believed that she was the one. It was a little tiny grocery store. And I don't know, you guys. So Netflix did not talk about this, and maybe because they were able to rule Bryan out, if they didn't talk about it. I was really hoping to get some kind of some kind of resolution on this. I just feel like we didn't get a resolution on that. I just find it hard to believe that we had the two cases of people both being done away in campsites, because they were done away at their campsite. Both at night, both in that small little town and in that area. And I just, I guess, it could be a coincidence. I just thought it was weird. And then they were trying to blame it on the woman who found Kylan and Crystal. And she didn't have anything to do with it. And then they blamed it on a homeless man who was deceased and couldn't say one way or the other. So I don't know. But we hear toward the end of episode 1, and I'm going to talk about Roberta and Chris in like 1 minute, and Bryan's sister, because what an actress she is. What an actress. So we hear from Gabby's ex, Jackson. And now this is something new I did not know when I was covering the case. So Jackson shares that on August 22nd, he received a text message from Gabby, and that it sounded like a cry for help, and that she wanted to get away, and she was afraid of what Bryan might do. And he characterized this as a cry for help. Let me just show you what he looks like so you guys can see him. Add this back in, see if I can adjust it. Wow, I'm not getting, let me try this one. All right, here we go. This works. Okay, that worked. Okay, so let me just show you what he looked like. Okay, so that's him. There's Gabby's mom. That's NICHOL. And then this is her ex, Jackson. So, of course, she's in Jackson. So she's probably thinking about Jackson, right? So I can see why she would be thinking of him. But maybe also she was having trouble with Bryan and just, was thinking it would be, great to get away from this guy. So we learned that Gabby had dreamed about doing this van life trip with Jackson. This is something that they talked about together. And so we learned that Gabby texted Jackson on August 22nd. This was not the only interaction that Gabby was having with Jackson. And I'm just wondering if Bryan, being as controlling as he was, if he didn't know that Gabby was having these interactions with Jackson, and if this set off a chain of events possibly for Gabby. But she says, I quote, "I'm sure I'm the last person on the planet you want to hear from. I would really love to talk to you. I'm only alone until tomorrow." And Jackson said he did call her. They did a lot of catching up on how life was going for her, how life was going for him. And we found out on August 27th. Now, this is significant because this is the day, this was the last day that we know that Gabby was alive. This is the last proof of life that we have of her. We believe she was done away with sometime in the night of August the 27th or in the wee hours of the morning on August 28th. So she chatted with Jackson on the 27th. And we also found out about why they didn't pay the bill at the Mary Piglet. So this is the second to the last proof of life that we have for Gabby. There's the Moab traffic stop. And look at his face compared to her face. I mean, that says it all, right? Who's the victim? But somehow it got pinned on her. I don't get that. I'll never understand that. But this is the Mary Piglet. So we all wondered what this whole fight was about, because Nina Angelou, who's an Instagrammer, said that she had witnessed a fight between Bryan and the hostess. And I guess it was like a big brouhaha, because quite a few people noticed it. And so what we found out during the Netflix documentary is that this whole fight was actually about the food. They didn't think the food was good. They felt like the food Gabby said the food made her sick. So I thought that was really interesting too. because we always wondered, like, what is this about? What about this food? And I don't want to put that picture up of Gabby because there, we'll put that one up. Okay, so let me keep going because I mean, I want to get to the Roberta and Chris Laundrie. I am going to check in with chat, but we just learned it. So we learned from a text message that Gabby sent to Bryan what that fight was about Mary Piglet. Gabby was in the bathroom. She said the food made her sick. She didn't feel comfortable paying for food that made her sick. So at least we know now what the fight was about, because all we heard was that Bryan had a fight with the hostess. And we thought that, this was one of the things that probably spun the events into, this was the beginning of the end for Gabby, because this was on the 27th. This was out in her last hours. So it does feel like Gabby was really ready to leave Bryan from her text messages and phone calls with her ex Jackson, it seems like. And we also found out that she made a Snapchat message with Jackson. She Snapchatted him and text messages. So did Bryan know about this? So the last footage that we see, the last footage, known footage of Gabby alive, is on August the 27th at 2 p.m. That's Gabby and Bryan going into the Whole Foods in Jackson, Wyoming. And this is they are not holding hands. Gabby has her arms crossed going into it. They don't look lovey-dovey. So it looks like things were escalating. And then we learned, get this, and I'm going to talk about Chris and Roberta. I'm like 2 paragraphs away. Then we learned from NICHOL that Gabby reached out to her, that she reached out to Gabby. She asked if Gabby was okay, especially after what happened in Moab. Now, Gabby played it down, and NICHOL didn't know what happened in Moab exactly till she saw that video along with all the rest of us in the world. And she was shocked when she saw it. And she was shocked how the law enforcement turned it around on Gabby. But she wanted to know if Gabby was okay, and she checked in with her. So this is on the 27th, leading up to, this is in the last hours that Gabby was alive. That these are not the last text messages from Gabby to her mom. I'm going to explain that too, because Bryan is sneaky. So Gabby wrote back in a text message because she asked if she's okay. I'm fine. I convinced Bryan to go and camp out in the woods, so I have the van to myself. So in my opinion, that sounds like they split. She was talking to Jackson. The Moab incident had happened. He had he didn't just say he didn't want to pay the bill. He had like a big, loud argument with the hostess at the Mary Piglet. Gabby was crying at the Mary Piglet. Every time I read something up this, it seems like Gabby was crying or Gabby was apologizing. So Gabby continues. She says, it's what he wants to do anyway. She's talking about Bryan. I don't care. He said I could have the van if I paid him. And her mom texts back, are you guys breaking up? And Gabby said, no, I just said I could make more money as a solo female van lifer. And she has like a laughing face emoji. I'm driving to a campsite now. So my question is, did she reconcile with Bryan later? Because there's no record that we know of any text messages or phone calls. Or more likely, did he sneak up on her while she was asleep in the van? Did he sit in his campsite stewing, getting madder and madder and madder? We'll never know because Gabby's not with us. And so the next day, August 28th, we know that Gabby is gone. We know that Gabby is gone. That was made very clear. And I'm going to tell you more about that in a second. But I want to tell you what Bryan did on the 28th. So he's a sneaky little creep. He hikes. He hikes and he takes pictures of his hike along the way. A lot of bones of dead animals too, which is, when you think about it in the context of where that he had left Gabby and how he had left Gabby. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a second. But so he hikes up for the day, takes a bunch of pictures, and he calls his parents. I'm going to tell you more about that too, because there's a lot more that we didn't know about that. So, but on the way back from his hike, he has to get back to the van, right? Because he's setting himself up an alibi. So we meet Norma Jean, who's a resident. She picks Bryan up. He's hitchhiking. Think how creepy that is in retrospect. And then on August 30th, and she takes Bryan back to where the van, close to the van. He doesn't want to go to the van with her. We know why, because I don't know if Gabby was in there and no longer with us, or he had put her where she was found. I don't know that. We don't know that. But on August 30th, NICHOL, Gabby's mom, receives a text from Gabby's phone. Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his phone messages and missed calls. My phone doesn't even have service. And she's reading the message and she's like, Stan is Gabby's grandfather. So this text message is not coming from Gabby, but NICHOL doesn't think, the worst. You don't jump to my daughter's been done away with. She thought maybe, Bryan was texting on behalf of Gabby and Gabby was driving. So she tries texting her on September 1st. How's it going? She doesn't answer. Gabby doesn't answer. On September 2nd, she texts, hi, are you going to Montana? She still gets no response from Gabby. Then she starts going through the social media posts and she sees that not only is Gabby not answering her when she usually does, not texting her when she usually does, her last Instagram post was on August 25th. And NICHOL said she didn't see any social media posts of Gabby, and that was unusual. And she starts to get really nervous. But she thinks she's overthinking it. She's like, well, maybe they went hiking, they're having fun, maybe they're out of cell phone service. September 6th, she still hasn't heard from Gabby, and she texts Gabby again. She's, Gab, I just got home from camping. I haven't heard from you. Love you. September 7th, she texts again. Hi, I know you might not have a good signal, but I'm actually getting worried. I haven't heard from you in a while. So when she hadn't heard from Gabby by September 9th, she texts Gabby's dad, Joe Petito. Now, both NICHOL and Gabby are remarried to different people, perfect, all very nice people. And she tells Gabby's dad, his name is Joe. She says, sorry to bother you. Have you heard from Gabby? I am starting to worry. Joe told NICHOL he had not heard from Gabby, so he starts calling Gabby. They even reached out to Gabby's ex, Jackson. And at this point, Gabby's mom is getting really worried that both Gabby and Bryan are missing. She's worried that they got lost. Maybe they fell in a ravine. So she reaches out to Chris and Roberta Laundrie. Oh, you guys. I thought these people were awful. It goes beyond the worst awful. Let me just put their picture up because they hid behind masks and baseball caps. But I just, that's their house in Northport. That's the sister. We're going to talk about Cassie. She should get an Emmy for her performance. There they are, the Laundrie family with Gabby. And there's Chris and Roberta. So let's just have them be right there where we can all see what they really look like without their masks, without their baseball caps, because they were ducking and hiding, in my opinion, allegedly. Everything I'm saying about Chris and Roberta is my opinion and alleged. So she starts texting Chris. She starts reaching out. Her first text is to Roberta. Gabby's mom asks, have you heard from the kids? Because she thinks Bryan's missing too. And she said, the first text that she sent goes through, but nobody answers. And the second text that she said didn't go through. So either she was blocked or they switched their phones off. She didn't know which. So, of course, Bryan is where at this point? Bryan's at the house. He's at the house with Chris and Roberta while these frantic messages from Gabby's mom and in a few minutes, her dad. So they knew where Gabby was, in my opinion, allegedly. I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you why I think Chris and Roberta knew exactly where Gabby was in just a second. But Joe Petito reached out to Chris and Roberta and they ignored him too. He also reached out to Cassie, the sister. Remember Cassie on Good Morning America? Remember Cassie on video telling us all, I'm cooperating fully with law enforcement. My parents don't even hardly speak to me. Well, that's a lie too. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to prove to you that Cassie's a liar too. What an actress she is. So he reached out to Cassie. She ignores Joe Petito also. So just as awful. The apple does not fall far from the tree in the Laundrie family, in my opinion, allegedly. So let's just be clear. Chris, Roberta, Cassie, and Bryan are all ignoring Gabby's parents' frantic texts wanting to know where Gabby is. Joe even sent a text message to them saying, "We're calling the police." He thought that would get a response. Because if you hear someone's going to call the police, you might pick up the phone. Nope. Nope. These people are hard-hearted. And we find out later that they when Bryan came home, they all went camping with Cassie too. She didn't spend the night, but she was there. I think they wanted to get away from any potential listening devices, but we'll talk about that in a second. So Bryan's back home. So at this point, Nicole's just frantic. She's put up a post on Facebook asking, "Where is Gabby?" She's making calls to different law enforcement agencies in and around the area where Gabby and Bryan were last known to be. She does not know, and Joe does not know, that Bryan's at home with Gabby's phone, Gabby's credit cards, and Gabby's van, all home, but not Gabby. So they were told by law enforcement they had to make a report for missing persons where Gabby's residence was. So they call the Northport Police, which is where Roberta and Chris lived with Gabby and Bryan. So we get to see this body cam footage of Officer Ramirez going to knock on the Laundrie's door. We see Roberta and Chris point blank refuse to talk to police. Law enforcement asked them, when was the last time they saw Bryan? And he says Gabrielle instead of Gabby, but I think it's because Gabrielle, he just misread it. And Chris says, well, Bryan is here. And sitting in the park driveway is Gabby's van. So I believe, and I'm going to tell you why I believe this, that they knew, that the Laundries knew, that Chris and Roberta knew, and Cassie knew what they did, what Bryan did to Gabby before he ever left to come back to Florida, before he ever got in that van. And I'm going to tell you why in just a second. So Chris, the law enforcement officer, can't believe he's not getting any cooperation. And so Chris is, Laundrie says, well, Bryan's here, and that's all I'm going to say. And he admits to them that, he knows that Bryan's there. And then he says, we have an attorney. They already have an attorney that they paid a $25,000 retainer to. That's not like a consultation for $300, $400. That's like a serious chunk of change. So then Chris Laundrie tells the police officer his attorney's number and hands him a little slip of paper with the phone number. And the law enforcement officer's like, well, I can't call. It's nighttime. It's dark. It's dark out. And he's like, I can't call. It's night. Your lawyer's not going to be there at night. And, Chris and Roberta, they don't care. So then the law enforcement officer calls his supervisor. He doesn't know what to do. He just can't believe. And it just all looks so suspicious. So they go back and they realize that the van that's in the driveway belongs to Gabby, that Gabby's van is sitting there in the Laundrie's driveway. So how did her van get back? But nobody knows where Gabby is. And they have this lawyer already retained. So now the police are really suspicious. The police officer goes back to the door. He's trying to appeal to Chris and Roberta's good side. Unfortunately, in my opinion, they don't have a good side. Because he says, I know you guys don't want to talk to me. But her parents are worried. He's talking about Gabby's parents. And Chris says, we don't know anything. Well, this is a lie. And I'm going to tell you why in just a few seconds. And the officer's begging them. Is there anything you can tell us? When was the last time anyone saw Gabby? Can Bryan talk to us? And Chris is just saying, no, he's not going to talk to anybody. The officer continues trying to appeal to their decent side, but they don't have a decent side. Clearly, they do not, in my opinion, allegedly. And the officer says, as a parent, wouldn't you want to know where your child is? And Chris just talks over him and basically dismisses this police officer. Police officer tries one more time. He continues. He says, this time he changes his tact. He says, it makes it very odd, don't you think, from my point of view? And Chris is literally starting to close the door, and he's got a quarter close, and the police officer is still trying to talk to him with the door closing. And he asks him about the van in the driveway, and Chris and Roberta lie. They say it's Bryan and Gabby's van. It's not. And the police officer has to point out that the van belongs to Gabby. So he tells Bryan's parents he's going to have to, he's going to tow it. And they're like, okay. And so he said, well, can you move your Mustang out of the way, your convertible Mustang, which that plays a role. That's going to come back later too. And so then poor Nicole Schmidt has a police officer contact her because she lives in the Northeast. She lives in Newark. And police officer says they sent somebody to the Laundrie residence and that Gabby's van is there. Bryan is there, but Gabby is not there. And that Bryan has a lawyer. So at this point, Nicole is absolutely panicked. She said she couldn't stop shaking. Joe says that he and his wife, Tara, both start screaming as soon as they heard this. And Tara says she collapsed. Tara's Gabby's stepmom. These people are like good, decent people. And at this point, Gabby's parents spring into action. They contact every missing person site. They emailed every news outlet. Joe flies immediately to Florida. He gets on camera. This is how people who really do have missing children behave, even if they're not married to each other anymore. Joe gets on camera. He's immediately appealing to the public to help find Gabby. And we know from the law enforcement's attempt to appeal to Chris and Roberta's good side that there isn't one. And Chris, Roberta, and Cassie all ignore his pleas. He appeals directly to Bryan's parents. He appeals directly to them, to their friends, anybody. And I've been asked a lot why this case went viral. And I think there's a couple of factors. One is that she was trying to become a YouTuber. And I think that touched a lot of people on YouTube. The other thing is there was lots of photos of Gabby. She's beautiful, but there were lots of pictures of her also because she was taking all these photos. They had been on the road for 41 days. So there were lots of photos of Gabby and Bryan. And I just think also there was this mystery of we didn't know where she was or what had happened to her. And as human beings, our brains are naturally attracted to mystery. So I think all of the elements were there that why this case went viral. It had, and then she had this YouTube channel that she was trying to start. So at this point, the Laundrie house is under surveillance and the police have been brought in the FBI is brought in to help search for Gabby. And I'm going to tell you about Cassie in just a second, but let me just say hello to Chad. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be rude. I watched this and I was going to do this in like a part 1, part 2, part 3. I still think I'm going to do follow-up videos on this, but I want to dig into it. But I just couldn't come on and just only tell you about part 1 because I have still a whole bunch of stuff to tell you that like revelations that we did not know. So hello, Mike. It's good to see you. Hi, Pam. Come on in, you guys. Let me just say hello to chat. Thank you so much to our all of our mods and our channel members and subscribers. Thank you so much. This is our head mod. This is NJazz. Thank you so much for all your help, NJazz. Michael says that's totally unacceptable on the Laundrie's part, right? Right? Oh my gosh. Hey, Sirius Black. It's okay if you don't have Netflix because I'm giving you everything. You don't have to have Netflix to follow along with me. And I have a whole Gabby Petito playlist. Their earlier videos, I don't know if the sound quality is probably as good, but they're still worth watching. I have a whole playlist if you want to like get caught up on anything. Thank you, Annette. Yeah, if you don't have Netflix, don't worry. I'm giving you everything, and I'm breaking it down for you. But the worst is yet to come because the biggest revelations, and this is why I just couldn't just go with part 1 because the biggest things were in episodes 2 and 3, just absolutely shocking. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Hi, Kimberly. She says, Gabby Petito is why I got into true crime. Her story reminded me of mine. I'm so sorry that this happened to you. Well, I think he snuck back in. I'm going to tell you why. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that. I think they agreed to split that night and he agreed to camp by himself. And that's what Gabby told her mom. But I believe he snuck back into that camper that night. The reason I believe this is there are no text messages from Gabby that we were told about, and we were told about everything. um, that show that she invited him back that night on the 27th. So I think he was sitting there stewing, getting madder and madder in his tent, sleeping alone. And I think he crept back into that and either got her to open the door. Yeah, she was beautiful inside out. Yep, exactly. Yeah, I bet you did. Hey, Veronica. Yeah, he was a creep, Mike. You're right. Yeah, this came out today. This came out on Netflix today, but don't worry, you won't be confused when I'm done because I am going to fill you in on everything and I will take your questions if there's anything you don't understand. Yeah, please give this a thumbs up. Let the YouTube know we're doing a G-rated show. The van does look nice at the beginning, right? The beginning pictures. Hi, Kami. Yeah, it is heartbreaking. But hopefully by telling this story and by getting the word out there, we can keep this from happening to someone else. Hey, Sandra. Hi, Susie Q. Susie Q says, I think Gabby is probably a neat freak. He was probably a slob. I'm sure she was getting frustrated with him not helping her keep the van tidy and nice. Michelle says, did you see the back of the van? Yeah. And I think, and Gabby was alive. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to prove to you why she was alive when Red, White, and Bethune, I'm going to tell you about Red, White, and Bethune. They're the ones that found her. I'll tell you about them now. Okay. So, woof. So this is Roberta and Chris Laundrie. Okay. So how they found Gabby's, and Cassie is a liar. Brian's sister, Cassie, is a liar, in my opinion, allegedly. Don't come for me. But I would love, if they want to come for me, that's fine. I would love to get them under deposition. I'd love to get them in a filmed deposition. Um, but Cassie claims she fully cooperated with law enforcement. That's what she told everybody, and that she wasn't speaking to her parents. She told everybody a bunch of lies. And I'm going to tell you why in just a second. So, how did they find Gabby? Let me just get to that part. Okay, so so I think that Bryan, this is my opinion. Um, Cassie claims she gets called out of her house, and I think it's JLR that's talking to her, and because I remember seeing that on his channel when I was covering the case, and she says that her parents aren't talking to her, that she's fully cooperating with law enforcement. All lies, and I'm going to tell you why Cassie's a liar in just a moment. So please stay with me. Um, but she gets an Oscar for her performance because I think we all believed her. So Red, White, and Bethune, we're going to talk about them. So the episode 3 is titled Burn After Reading. And let's start there. So Red, White, and Bethune is a YouTubers. So initially when they put out when they needed the dash cam footage, it wasn't during the dates that Red, White, and Bethune were in the park. But the dates got updated and included August 27th. And they were like, oh, we have that footage. So they pulled up their dash cam footage. She was editing and she sees that she has the van and she posted on her YouTube channel and lets law enforcement know. So now law enforcement have a jumping off point because they now know that kind of where, because they're, the Grand Teton is huge. It is absolutely huge. I don't know if they ever would have found Gabby if it wouldn't have been for Red, White, and Bethune's video. So that's where you see that the door van closing. And we were all looking at that to see, is it closing? Is it not closing? Because we were just, looking at that footage going, oh my God, that is her van. And we saw that it was her flip-flops were outside the door. Now she was alive. Now, they said when they went by, the van looked dark and they thought that maybe whoever was in there was out hiking. I don't know what was going on, why the van looked dark, but they said the van looked dark when they went by. Now, Gabby was found. Once they turned their dash cam footage over to law enforcement found Gabby. It took them 2 days. They were on horseback looking. And, because again, even though they had like narrowed in and found the van, where the van was, and they lined up where the van was with the trees. This is what law enforcement did. They still had to like search around there. But they found her and they looked like the crime scene had been staged. They found a campsite with a fire, not a campsite, but just like a fire rocks around, like a fire had been burned there, and they found her wrapped up in a sweater lying on her side, and they felt like that it had been staged. Now, Gabby was alive on August 27th. They did not find her until September 19th. And law enforcement believes that she was out there wrapped in the same position since August 27th. So how do we know she was alive? Let's dig into that. They said, oh, let me just tell you, there was the remains of a campfire and her boots were off, but they believe that this was not natural. There was nothing that looked natural about it to them. They thought it was staged, and her demise was ruled as a homicide due to blunt force trauma and throttling. Watching my words. So they were. Let's just talk about the how Bryan left her. And then we're going to get into what a real piece of work Bryan is, how manipulative he is, what a sneaky creep he is. So Gabby's stepdad, Jim Schmidt, he's married to NICHOL. Gabby's dad's name is Joe, and Gabby's stepmom's name is Tara. So Gabby's mom was shown, Jim was shown images to identify Gabby. He teared up when he recalled this. And he said that he felt like Gabby was left out in the wild like a piece of trash by someone who was supposed to love her. He had to call NICHOL, Gabby's mom, Gabby's dad, Joe, and Gabby's stepmom. He conferenced them all in and said that Gabby had passed away. He said it was the worst call he ever made in his life. NICHOL had 3 children with Jim, and they had to tell their 3 children. So now we have, let's go through Gabby's timeline of when she was last seen, the last day. Let's go through August 27th together. So, because now law enforcement's shifting their attention to arresting Bryan Laundrie. So they know that Gabby was seen at the Mary Piglet around 1 p.m. on August 27th. They know this visit jumped out at people because Bryan had a big fight with the hostess. We then know that they pulled image of Gabby and Bryan going to the Whole Foods. That was around 2:15 at still on the 27th. We know from Gabby's ex-boyfriend Jackson that he did receive a call from Gabby on the 27th, but he didn't answer that last call. And he just really wonders if he would have picked up the phone if things would have turned out differently. So the red, white, and Bethune video was taken between 6 and 6:30 on August 27th. I believe that Gabby was still alive because at 7:15, the final text from Gabby, and we know it probably was Gabby. It was this text with her mom, which she said, Bryan said, I could have the van if I paid him. And NICHOL asked if they're breaking up. And Gabby says, no, I just told him I would make more money as a solo female lifer. And she has a laughing emoji with it. So now Gabby at 8:32 p.m. on August 27th, we know she was still alive because Gabby had a habit of moving computer files around on her hard drive. And the way that they were being moved that night were consistent with the way that Gabby had moved these files around on her hard drive on other nights. So Gabby was alive when Red, White, and Bethune drove by and we saw that door close. That was a question I think a lot of us wondered at the time. The other big question is, did Roberta and Chris know? What did they know? When did they know it? And Cassie and we have some answers for that too. So law enforcement does believe that Gabby was still alive at 8:30. However, by August 28th, law enforcement has no indication that Gabby was alive. Bryan was, remember, supposed to be sleeping somewhere else in a campsite. So did he sneak back? Because there's no text messages showing Gabby inviting him back. There's no phone calls between Gabby and Bryan that we were told about. So sometime between 8:32 p.m. and the next morning, he did away with Gabby. Did he sneak back in when she was asleep? Did he knock on the window, and she was sympathetic and opened it? Was she apologizing like she had so many other times? So on August 28th, sneaky Bryan is busy creating an alibi for himself. He hikes from where they are at their campsite. He hikes up from, they're in Spread Creek is where they are. He hikes up to Coulter Bay. He takes all kinds of photos along the way. Some of them are just scenic, but some of them are just creepy. He's taking photos of animals that are deceased. So bones. That's what he's taking pictures of. On August 29th, one day later, At 1:20 p.m., he calls his mom, Roberta. He speaks to her on the phone for 55 minutes. And this is where episode 3 talks about the burn after reading letter. That's the letter that Roberta wrote to Bryan saying that if he was in jail, she would give him a saw. If there was a body, she would help him bury it. I mean, this letter is creepy. She says she didn't write it after Gabby. I don't believe her. I don't believe anything that Roberta and Chris say. They have no credibility, zero, zilch after what they did. Because listen to this. He calls Roberta. He speaks to her for 55 minutes. The next thing that happens is Chris Laundrie calls their attorney. So I think they knew, in my opinion, allegedly, don't come for me. I think they knew August 29th what Bryan had done. They called an attorney and put him on a $25,000 retainer. You don't do that for a consultation. They were supposed to love Gabby. She was living with them. Law enforcement says there were phone calls, numerous calls. It looked like 8 to 10 calls back and forth that day, the 29th, between Roberta and Chris and Bryan. So they were definitely planning, in my opinion, the fact that they got a lawyer immediately to cover for Bryan right then and there. And that's why that burn after reading letter that Roberta wrote, I would bury a body for you, is significant. I think Chris and Roberta are horrible people, in my opinion, allegedly. And Cassie, I'm going to tell you about her too. So while Bryan's hiking, get this, while he's hiking, creepy, 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 he's texting Gabby's phone to create an alibi for himself, saying stuff like, I can't wait for you to see the mountains across the water. Wish you could fly the drone here, with a little smiley face at the end. Just in retrospect. And of course, her phone's not answering. We knew Chris and Roberta were not good people when they refused to assist law enforcement in looking for Gabby Petito. We knew they were not good people when they found out, when Bryan came home with Gabby's van, Gabby's credit cards, Gabby's cell phone, but they all went camping to Fort DeSoto. We knew they were not good people when they refused to respond to NICHOL, who was just begging to get information on where Gabby was. But we didn't know until this Netflix series that Bryan had called them on the 29th of August, and that they immediately called an attorney, and that there was this flurry of phone calls back and forth. I bet they thought this would never come to light. And in my opinion, this proves that they knew what Bryan did. And I don't know why they weren't charged as accomplices after the fact. So then we hear from Miranda Baker, and she shares that she and her boyfriend picked up Bryan at the Grand Teton National Park, and that Miranda and her boyfriend picked up Bryan at the Culture Bay at 5:55 and begin driving south toward Jackson. And around 6:30, 6:45, Bryan gets picked up by Norma Jean, who I told you about, and she gives him a ride to the entrance of the Spread Creek area. He does not want to be driven to the van, of course, because either Gabby's still in the van or she's outside. But this whole hiking trip was just him creating an alibi for himself with text messages. So my question is, did Steve Bertolino know? Did the attorney know? I would like to know the answer to that question. Steve, if you would ever like to come on Reporter Room, I would love to talk to you. I'd love to have you answer that question. Did you know? Did you suspect? Just curious. What did you know and when about what happened to Gabby, Steve? So Bryan continues to text Gabby's phone, and of course, none of the messages are read until Bryan gets back to Spread Creek, where the van is located. Now Bryan's got both phones in his hand. He's holding both phones, and he's texting as himself, Bryan, and then he's answering using Gabby's phone as Gabby. So he answers himself back, yeah, sure, baby, I'll do one more night of. And then we've still got our campsite at Culture Bay for 2 nights. And then Bryan responds as himself, I love you, honey. See you tomorrow. This is just disgusting and slimy. So he's pretending to be Gabby for the purpose of building himself an alibi. Did he get legal advice for this? Was this parental advice, or did he come up with this on his own? I don't know. So law enforcement tells us that they believe Bryan was holding both cell phones at this point and talking to himself. On August 30th, Bryan leaves Wyoming and heads back to Florida, driving Gabby's van with Gabby's cell phone, and he uses Gabby's credit card. He uses Gabby's credit card to pay for the gas because, he's not going to pay for his own gas. He's so entitled, but it gets worse. It gets worse because he steals from Gabby too. And this is where we get this infamous Stan text message that in retrospect was clearly Bryan posing as Gabby using her phone, sending Gabby's mom this message because Gabby wouldn't refer to her grandfather as Stan. And we know Gabby was no longer with us at this point. So he's driving Gabby's van. He's using Gabby's credit cards. He's paying for gas on his way home to Northport, Florida. And his parents are waiting with an attorney ready on retainer for $25,000. And then we found out, and I did not know about this, that there was a Zelle transaction from Gabby to Bryan. So obviously Bryan made it. So Gabby's no longer with us. So Bryan sent himself $700 with a message that was supposedly from Gabby that said, quote, "Goodbye, Bryan. I'll never ask you for anything again." So he's got Gabby's van, Gabby's credit cards. She's paying for all the gas, Gabby's cell phone, and now he's wiring himself money, posing as her. He's so entitled. These people are just disgusting. So at this point, Bryan goes from being a missing, this goes from being a missing person case to Bryan becoming a federal fugitive because on September 23rd, a federal arrest warrant was issued for Bryan Laundrie. And I'm going to tell you, Dog the Bounty Hunter, but I want to tell you about Cassie. I want to tell you about Cassie in just a second. So please stay with me. Let me just check in with chat. I feel really bad. I'm so sorry. Yeah, they sure did. They sure did, Michelle. Thank you so much, NJAZ, for gifting this membership. If you got the membership from NJAZ, please let me know. Thank you so much, NJAZ. That's so nice of you. Welcome, Lulu. And thank you so much to Brother Mike for the super sticker. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Mike. All right, let me check in with chat. We're not done because I still have to dig into Cassie. Let me just put her face up on the screen. There she is with her family, and there she is. Okay. Because she is I can't believe these people. I really can't. Yeah, Gabby was locked out of her own van when he was driving away at the Moonflower incident. He was driving her car. He had her cell phone. He told law enforcement that was the only cell phone. That's a lie. He had his own cell phone, but he told them it was his only cell phone. And he had locked Gabby out of her own van and then was, tapping her with an SL. Yeah. So that completely got turned around on Gabby. Yeah, it can, but people did report her. Yeah, they did. Yep. Yep. Oh, I knew what you meant. We're glad you're here. Welcome. Congratulations. I'm so glad to have you. Hi, Frank. Okay. Yeah, this is a G Ready channel. So you can use whatever words you want, but just watch what words you use. We want to keep it keep it friendly. Yeah, Jackson does look nice. Here's what Jackson looks like. If you don't know what he looks like, let me just show you. That's the house. There's Jackson. So that's her ex. And then if you don't know what Bryan looks like, let me move myself out of the way. There's Bryan. So and that's NICHOL. That's Gabby's mom. That's her ex, Jackson. That's the Mary Piglet. And then this is the house in Northport. This is Cassie. We're going to talk about Cassie. Cassie, if you ever want to come on my show, let me know. I would love to interview you. Love to get your side of the story. Hey, Amanda. All right. If you guys have any questions, drop them. I just want to see if I've missed anything. I have a lot more to dig into because I haven't even started on Kathy yet, but I have some things to say, and I have some more things to say about Roberta and Chris because they're not done. They're not done with their game playing yet. They still weren't done. What they had done wasn't enough. They had to keep on doing it. Hey, Mike. CJK said, I agree. I thought they were all despicable back then. I thought Cassie was the nice one. I'll just, I'll say it. When she said she wasn't talking to her parents, I believed her. Hey, Pepper. Cheryl says they didn't their son more. I'm not sure what that says. I'm sorry. Brian's mother is jealous of Gabby. She gives me Cindy Watts vibes. Just big time enabler, always willing to believe the worst of another person, right? When you're dealing with people like Bryan, went to tattle on Gabby with her own mother. He was trying to drive a wedge between Gabby and her mother. And I don't have any doubt that did the same thing with Roberta. But to me, if you choose to believe terrible things about somebody, that's on that, not you personally, but if someone, let me say this a different way. If someone chooses to say terrible things about you, that's on them. If the person they're telling believes them, that's their problem. That's their problem. If they are so willing to believe awful things about you, just because somebody else, they're willing to listen to it, they're willing to entertain it, they're willing to believe it, that's on the person. So I think whether Bryan did this or not, I still think Roberta's responsible for Roberta. And she lived with Gabby. I'm not saying Gabby was perfect, but Gabby was a good person. She didn't deserve this. Nobody deserves this. And I think that their behavior led to what happened to Bryan too. I think that falls squarely on the shoulders of Roberta and Chris. And I'm going to tell you why. I have so much still to tell you guys. Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, Mike says that day he got hiking, he got a ride back and then freaked out and got out of the car. Yeah, they said he was weird. I think he just this is my opinion. He was very manipulative and he's building an alibi for himself, right? While he's hiking, he's taking pictures of bones, and then he's texting Gabby, with happy face. And then when he got back, so I think he made a big scene so he would be remembered. That's my opinion. That's my theory. He's not here, so we don't know. But I think he made a big scene on the ride back so they would remember him. He needed that alibi that he needed to be remembered. Yeah, because he could have walked back. He walked there. So he could have hiked back. Instead, he's hitchhiking. So in my mind, he wanted witnesses to say where he was. He was very manipulative, in my opinion. Thank you so much, Jazz, for the super sticker. Hold on, let me just go through these. That is so nice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm putting that toward my computer. Kami says she gifted a reporter membership. Thank you so much, Kami. If you got that, tell me who you are. And Kami, thank you for being a channel member for 21 months. Wow, you guys, this is so nice. All right, I want to see what other questions you have about this. Yeah, Gabby's money, right? Mike says, yeah, the mom dropped him off at the park. That's crazy. No, she didn't. I'm going to tell you how that went down. I'm going to tell you how Bryan ended up in the park because we know everything now. We know everything now. But it's bad. It's bad for the Laundries. It's really, really bad. CJK says that hadn't come out. I thought that for a reason. Same thought they should have been charged. I think they should have been charged. Yeah, I don't understand how you don't get charged with being with doing this after the fact. I'm watching my words. I don't understand that. Offer $200 for a ride. Yeah, he was trying to make himself memorable. Hey, Sharon. Sharon says, I can't believe the cops didn't make Bryan come outside and explain himself. Well, they couldn't because they didn't have a warrant at that point. They didn't have probable cause at that point. They didn't have Gabby. They needed Gabby. Just like in the Sebastian Rogers case, they need Sebastian. So Mike says, yeah, the mom dropped him off. Well, she didn't. I'm going to tell you how that all went down. And that's Gabby's money. Yeah, he was taking Gabby's money, wiring it to himself using Zelle. You remember that too? And Jazz remembers that. Cheryl says, I bet he did. Mike says, they knew or they wouldn't have spent the money. Yep. They wouldn't have spent $25,000 if they didn't know. That is such a good point, Mike. There's no way they would have spent $25,000 to hire a lawyer if they did not know. Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's continue on together, shall we? Because I am just getting started on Chris and Roberta Laundrie. They're not done with their underhanded sneakiness, and Cassie's right there with them. So Bryan steals from Gabby after she's gone. He is so entitled, he gets that $700 out of Gabby's account. This is really gross. These people are absolutely gross, in my opinion, allegedly. At this point, Bryan is now being hunted, right? There's a federal arrest warrant that's issued for him, and he's gone. So let's talk about that, because a lot of people jumped in to search for Bryan Laundrie. Dog the Bounty Hunter joined the search. And this is a lot of from Dog the Bounty Hunter is how us on social media, law enforcement knew, but this is how we found out on social media that Roberta and Chris had gone camping and that Cassie met them to go camping. So yeah, what do you do when your fiance goes missing? You drive her van home, you steal her $700 from her, you use her credit card for gas, you come home with her phone, her ID, you park her van out in front. The parents pull their Mustang convertible in behind the van. But they had their camper out next to that white van in the body cam footage on Netflix. They went camping the weekend that Bryan got home. They went camping to Fort DeSoto Park. Just had a grand old time, roasted marshmallows. Cassie said she didn't spend the night. I don't know if I believe anything Cassie says anymore. She claims she didn't spend the night. She left because she had kids had school the next day. I don't know. I'm going to tell you why I don't believe Cassie. So we finally get to learn what happened in the days leading up to when Bryan disappeared, right? So 3 days before Bryan's parents reported him missing to law enforcement learned that someone had left the Laundrie car. So I believe this was the convertible, the Mustang convertible that was parked out in front of their house, belonged to Chris and Roberta Laundrie, and it was parked at the park nearby. For an extended period of time. So Bryan left on the 14th, but nobody reported him missing for 3 days. Roberta, Chris, and Cassie all stayed silent. Nobody said Bryan was gone. They made sure he had a 3-day head start, in my opinion. And there's just no way Chris and Roberta would not have noticed that their Mustang convertible had disappeared for 3 days. There's just no way. But they, in my opinion, they didn't report it to law enforcement because they wanted to give him a head start. If they had done the right thing and turned him in when they called him on the 29th, when he called them from the 29th from Wyoming, if they had done the right thing, Bryan would still be alive. He'd be in jail, but he'd be alive. So after they learned that the car was ticketed, it looks like Roberta's the one that drove that convertible back to the house. Maybe Chris drove it, but in the video, it looks like it's Roberta driving the convertible. And then after providing Bryan with a 3-day head start, picking up the convertible, they then informed law enforcement that this park is one of Bryan's favorite places to go hiking. And again, if they had done the right thing, would Bryan still be alive? I think so. And now remember, there's this crowd of people gathering outside of the Laundrie house in Northport. They want to know what's happened. They were outside Cassie's house. They were outside there. They're like yelling. They want Bryan to come out. So they said he just went out for a hike. But get this, we learned this. We didn't know this. He went out for a hike. He took a backpack. He took a tent. And he took a bunch of food. So we know what happened to him. We don't know when. But tell me what Roberta and Chris thought, that they just thought he was going out for a hike with a tent, a backpack, and a bunch of food. I don't think so. And they gave him a 3-day head start. When they didn't hear from him, whatever signal they were supposed to get from him is probably when they got nervous. But they didn't report him missing for 3 days. He had food, a tent. Come on. But they told law enforcement they believed Bryan was going to return. But again, he took the food, a bunch of in the tent. Come on. They gave him 3-day head start. So the story is that the Laundries didn't cause law enforcement about the car because they thought Bryan was going to return home. This just reeks to high heaven. I think they didn't call law enforcement because they just wanted to make sure he had 3 days ahead of them. So then we find out lots of questions, about law enforcement was surveilling the house. So how did they lose track of Bryan? Well, they said they saw Roberta and they mistook her for Bryan. I don't know if that was an accident or not, but we see these awful messages. And this is where I have lost all respect for Cassie, who told us she wasn't speaking to her parents. Netflix reveals that there are these awful text messages between Roberta and Cassie, laughing at how law enforcement could have mistaken Roberta for Bryan. Yeah, that's hilarious. After your brother does away with somebody, Cassie, that's hilarious. I thought Cassie was the decent one in the family, but after watching this series, I will tell you I was wrong. I will admit I'm wrong. So Cassie is taking a pot shot at law enforcement who are trying to find her brother. And she says, quote, they put their top-notch guys on surveillance. So Cassie came across as the decent one. She did the Good Morning America interview, said she was cooperating with law enforcement. Turns out she wasn't. She was laughing with her mother. And I believe her mother purposely looked like Bryan. I believe that was intentional. Allegedly. So on September 18th, law enforcement starts beginning searching for Bryan Laundrie in the Myahachie Creek Environmental Park, and the Carlton Reserves backs right up to that park. So they have like 20,000 acres to go through. It wasn't, it's pretty big. And we don't even, and because he had a 3-day head start, they don't even know he's still there. They just know that's where the car was parked. And we've got Cassie and Roberta laughing in text messages about law enforcement, confusing Roberta for Bryan. So the law enforcement's using drones, heat-seeking drones. They had search dogs, but it's such a swampy area. And the dogs are being attacked by the alligators. Think about that. Chris and Roberta sat on their hands at their house while law enforcement risked their dogs, who were attacked by alligators, and law enforcement and the dogs had to be put through all of this. Law enforcement is being shown on Netflix wading up to their chest in swampy water with snakes, alligators, because it's just the Myahachie is really swampy. So they looked for Bryan for 37 days. How much money did they spend? Are the Laundries responsible for paying back any of this? They gave Bryan a 3-day head start. They had $25,000 for a lawyer for Steve. Did they contribute anything? And Chris and Roberta, they didn't search. Does that sound familiar? They sat at home. And the Myahachie was closed to the public. It reopened. And at 7 a.m. when it reopened, they immediately go out to look for Bryan. Because I think at this point, after law enforcement had been searching for 37 days, I think they were worried. Because probably they were supposed to hear something from Bryan or get a signal from Bryan. And they hadn't heard anything. It took them an hour to find a waterproof bag that belonged to Bryan. They could have saved the searchers so much money. They could have maybe saved Bryan's life. But within an hour, law enforcement found Bryan, his remains. He unalived his own self. Inside the waterproof bag that was recovered, that Roberta found and Chris found, were pictures of Bryan, Gabby, and this notebook that Bryan had written in. He wrote multiple letters to his family to say he loved them and to say goodbye. So I don't know how many days he was out there. He wrote, he's so narcissistic that he said he did it to make the reason that he did away with his own self. I'm watching my words in case you have little ones in the room, was so that he could make his family happy. He could make her family, Gabby's family, happy. So in his own mind, even at the end, he's the victim. He's the victim of her family. He has to do this to make her family happy. And then he writes this horrible self-serving letter about how he did away with Gabby. And he claims he was helping her and she couldn't go on anymore and she was just begging him to do it. Come on. And instead of calling 911, which is what most people do if somebody's injured or needs help, he just decides to do what he did. He says he quote, "To take her pain away, I knew I couldn't go on without her." Bryan's sorry because he got caught. But like most narcissists, everything is someone else's responsibility. He's not going to be accountable for his own actions. And his parents didn't hold him accountable either. Neither did his sister. I feel like they share the blame. And reading Roberta's burn after reading letter, I can see why Gabby's family was so convinced that they knew. And I think they're right. That phone call to the lawyer, that $25,000 deposit to the lawyer, retainer to the lawyer, pretty much tells you, right? So Roberta writes in this letter, I'll bring a shovel to help you bury the body." That's in the burn after reading letter. So law enforcement didn't pull any punches. I'm grateful for the information. I just as soon as I got to 2, I had to go to 3. I was going to do this one episode at a time, and I'm still not done. I still have a couple more things I want to share, but let me just check in with chat. Please drop me your questions. I want to know what you guys think about this. What do you guys think about Cassie now? Let me just, oof. All right, let me see. Yeah, Molly was out there. She was one out there yelling. Mike says, "Yeah, I forgot these were the people outside for days and weeks." Yeah, they were outside of Cassie's house too. That's why she came out. She said she was trying to get her kids to sleep. I think the yelling was just driving her crazy, which that was the idea, right? That's the idea. So how sad, this is Laverne says, "How sad for Gabby's family to have to deal with these horrible people." Yeah, right? Can you imagine? Can you imagine going to the door like Chris Laundrie did and handing them the phone number for your lawyer? Cheryl says, "Exactly why I love Dog. He's there to the end." I love Dog the Bounty Hunter too. We would never have known as content creators about, I think law enforcement would have known about the camping trip, but we wouldn't have known if Dog the Bounty Hunter went and gotten it. That was like one of the big takeaways that he gave everybody, was that they all went camping. Chris, and that's when a lot of us started to think, oh my gosh, we thought that they had to have known, because how does he come home with her van, her phone, her credit cards, and they don't know? But there was like maybe that little bit of like reasonable doubt, like, well, maybe they didn't know, because of course we didn't know about the attorney retainer until today when Netflix came out and dropped this special. But yeah, Face of America is 100%. Hey, Face of America. Pepper says, "You as well. Happy here." Patricia said, "This put the fear in every heart of every parent of a 20-something. So young and fearless." Yep. Yep. Monez Smoke said, I hope I'm saying that right. "The parents knew, in my opinion, they knew it." Oh, yeah, I agree. I agree. I think they knew. I think they knew. Mike says, "They knew. He went to the end himself. In my opinion, they let him." Yep. My brother Mike says, "His folks stink on the whole thing." Yeah, they do. They do. And I want to tell you a couple of other things too. I just want to go. I have like the last little bit to go through. People kept calling them the dirty laundries. They kept calling them the dirty laundries. And I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe at first, after time went on, and then we found out he disappeared. Then we really got suspicious. But as time went on, we began to think, well, maybe, at first we thought, well, maybe, he came home and he lied and just said, they split up. We didn't know what they told him. We didn't know that law enforcement had tried to get them to talk to them. We didn't know. I mean, this is all. And then to find out about this text message between Cassie and Roberta, and they're laughing at law enforcement because they mistook Roberta for Bryan. I think, for all we know, Roberta did it intentionally to distract. I don't know. Patricia said, if they come for you, we have your back. Thank you. I would love it. I would love it. I would love to get them in a deposition on camera. I'm not signing an NDA. Just FYI, if you guys want to come talk to me, Cassie, on the air, come talk to me. I have questions. I want to know why you told us you weren't talking to your mother and why we have these text messages that clearly show that you lied to us. They thought it was funny. The whole family is sick. Yeah, I agree. Yep. Hey, Patricia. Sue Joy says, how would they feel if Gabby went home to her parents? I know, without Bryan. Yeah. And the only time they got worried is when he didn't check back in. After 37 days and they hadn't heard from him, then they went, and the park was open. They went out to look. They could have helped law enforcement search. I remember Chris did go out with law enforcement one time. But they didn't, I'm sure law enforcement would have welcomed their help. Veronica said, did any of Gabby's parents talk? Oh, yeah, they talked. I have more to share with you. I have more to share. We're like, I'm just taking some questions now. I just wanted to take a couple questions. I just didn't want to have a live stream and they should have to pay the money back, right? Susie Q says, I find it very strange that when they finally took Chris and Roberta out to go look for Bryan, they immediately found him. They didn't even take him. They went on their own. They just heard they were going out to look. I think they let law enforcement know they were going. At this point, I think they were honestly worried. They weren't worried at the beginning. They gave him a 3-day head start. He took his tent, his food, his stuff. And we don't know how long he was out there. Maybe he tried to, roughed it out there for a week. It was 37 days of searchers looking for him. Maybe he, roughed it out there for 3 or 4 days. I don't know. I mean, he wrote multiple letters to his family. So he was out there for some period of time. But we don't know how long because of the water and because of how he was found. They don't know for sure because it was swampy. It makes it harder to know. Cheryl says, I love how easy it was to find the notebook and the backpack. Yeah, you put it in a waterproof container. Totally, Mike. Totally. They all are, in my opinion, allegedly. Pepper agrees with you, Susie. She says, I find it strange that when they finally took Chris and Roberta out to go look for Bryan, he was immediately on. Yeah, and they went on their own, but I think they knew where he would have gone. They knew where his favorite spots were, but they let law enforcement search with their dogs in the swamp up to here in the heat, spending all that money. The burn letter was weird, in my opinion. I don't know what kind of mom says those, right? Cindy Watts vibes. I'm sorry. Cindy Watts, I feel a certain kind of way about her. Thank you, Michelle. Hi, Tara. Good to see you. Nice to meet you too, Face of America. So for those of you that don't know, I just do want to say I'm not ending because I still have some more. Well, I'm not done, but I just do want to say before we get too close, and I just do want to thank our producers, Enja, Sasha, Angel, Mikey M, George Brown, and Pepper. I want to thank our channel members because you guys allow me to be able to cover these cases. I'm sorry I'm like throwing it all out there today, but I just can't hold it in. I was so upset. I just like burst into tears when I started watching it, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about it. And there's just so much to unpack. We're still not done. And thank you so much for all your super thanks and coffee. And I got a PayPal from Michael, and then your gifted memberships from NJAZ and 6 Cents Amelia. Okay, let's get back to this now. Because we're not done. I will take some more questions, but let me just get back because we're not done. Okay, so law enforcement, they didn't pull any punches, and I'm really glad to know the extent that Roberta and Chris were really involved. Now we understand why Gabby's parents brought that civil lawsuit. And the suspicion would go back to those August 29th flurry of phone calls. And I think they did settle with Roberta and Chris did settle, and probably they made the Petitos promise not to say everything that they knew. But the Petitos didn't have to because it's the FBI and law enforcement that came on camera on Netflix to tell us what happened. So Bryan calls his dad on the 29th, calls his mom on the 29th, and the first call his dad makes is to a lawyer, and they put him on a $25,000 retainer. That is just does not say we just needed a consult. They, can he come back with the van? I mean, there's just no way around that they're going to dance their way out of that one to say that that was anything than what it was, which is we put a $25,000 retainer down for a criminal defense. That's the kind of money you'd put down for a criminal defense. That's not a civil case. That's criminal. So I just don't see how they can get around the fact at this point to anyone that they did not know. And I want to know, this is what I want to know. Why weren't charges brought against them? Was there just not enough to prove that they were aiding and abetting? Did law enforcement just feel like, well, they lost Bryan, so therefore, I mean, I would really like to know. Sorry, I got a tickle. So couple that with the fact that, Bryan told his parents, quote, Gabby is gone. That's what they said. That's what Chris said that Bryan told them. Bryan told them, get this. Okay, so on the August 29th, this is what the Roberta and Chris Laundrie want us to believe, that Bryan told them that Gabby is gone and that they didn't take it to mean anything. They didn't know what it meant, but they just called their attorney and put a $25,000 down and had this whole flurry of phone calls. There's all these phone calls going back between Bryan and Chris and Roberta and the lawyer. And that's why Steve Bertolino was named in that lawsuit too. And he's like, well, I didn't know anything. Do you believe him? I don't know what to think about Steve Bertolino. I think he knew what he wanted to know, but he went on multiple talk shows and talked on behalf of the Laundries. And in retrospect, it's just all so gross. They wired the money to him. They wired it to him. So then we find out from Joe Petito. That's who tells us about this money. Joe Petito says that the fact that they gave a lawyer $25,000 and Bryan told them that, quote, Gabby is gone, but they didn't even ask where Gabby was. Joe Petito summed it up perfectly. He said, bull S. Oh, that's my alarm telling me Bryan Kohberger. I moved Bryan Kohberger because I was worried I wouldn't be done, and I'm not done. So $25,000. So we are going to do Bryan Kohberger. I'll do it day after tomorrow. There's no breaking news on that one anyway. I'm waiting for those hearing transcripts. If the hearing transcripts come out tomorrow, I'll go live tomorrow. So this $25,000 is not a consultation fee. And Joe Petito summed it up perfectly. So toward the end of episode 3, we see NICHOL on the plane. They're heading back to Teton to Spread Creek to see where Gabby was found. And when they get to the area, Gabby's siblings are given her ashes, and they scattered her ashes around in different places. They got to pick out places where they wanted to scatter her. And then they family photo, and in this family photo, there's an orb in the photo, and they believe that orb is Gabby. And then they talk about the Gabby Petito Foundation. Some people were like saying that they were cashing in or something. No, they started a foundation. Let me pull it up and show you what they have, what they started. This is what they did in honor of their daughter. Let me make sure you guys can see what I'm seeing. Nope, I got to take this down. Okay, let me add this in. Let me grab it. Try one more time. Okay, this is it. Okay, so you guys can see what I see. Let me move myself out of the way. And I'm still in the way. Okay. This is what they use their money from. This is how real parents of real missing kids act. They have a Gabby Petito Alliance. It's the Gabby Petito Foundation. You can see it here. It's GabbyPetitoFoundation.org. Access to comprehensive, collective, helpful resources designed to empower you. Our alliance is dedicated to providing educational resources for everyone. Whether you are seeking detailed guides, insightful articles, or practical tools, we offer a carefully curated library to help you overcome challenges and to make confident, informed decisions. Please be patient while we develop this site. And then it goes into the alliance. A partnership to end DV, I'm watching my words, and to help find the missing. We can achieve far greater things together. With that mantra serving as the heart and soul of Gabby's message, our foundation, along with mission-driven social impact organizations, have come together to create an amazing collaborative initiative focused on prevention. Our mission is to empower youth and their families, communities, and multitudes of supportive services by centralizing and delivering innovative tools and resources to stop DV, promote healthy relationships, and help find missing loved ones, and so much more. And their hashtag is Together We Can. And if you would like to get involved, you can. You can share their foundation on social media. You can donate. You can volunteer. And if you need help, you can contact them. Okay, but there's also all kinds of information, community-based programs. So they have hotlines. And let me give the DV hotline while I'm here. It's 1-800-799-7233. 1-800-799-7233. If this story inspired you to get out of a situation, please call that hotline and get help. You can also call RAIN at 1-800-656-4673. That's RAIN at 1-800-656-4673. All right, so that's what they did with their resources. People were, they're suing, they're not, they didn't enrich themselves at Gabby's expense. And I do want to show you the video cam for those of you that did not see this Moab traffic stop. Let me just show you that. Can you guys hear it okay? Let me make sure I'm showing you what I think I'm showing you. Nope, I'm not. Let me try one more time. Okay, I'm going to show you the Moab traffic stop. Sure.
Driver is showing some obscure driving, possibly intoxicated.
It's a little loud. I'm going to turn it down. Can you guys hear it okay?
Currently doing 45 miles an hour.
Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear it.
Oh. Subject says to hit the curb. 2
if it's too loud. 3 if it's too soft.
Correction, speed limit is 15. I'm about 3/4 of a mile into the arches just before the gate.
That's Gabby's van. Just in case you haven't seen it. Or maybe you haven't seen it for a few years.
Sorry, you want to place your vehicle into park and go ahead and turn it off for me? Yeah. No, park?
Oh, it isn't park yet.
Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, all right? What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
I'm Brian.
Gabby, Brian? Okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm just crying. We've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were camping yesterday, and camping got stuff, flies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving. I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there. Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood?
You got it, buddy. I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you. Oh, no, you're fine.
So remember,
I'm going to go ahead and close your door, okay? Why don't you come over here?
Remember, he's responding to a call where he was told that Brian was tapping with an SL Gabby.
I have this email that was on the passenger seat separated from the mail. Keys are on the hood. You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean, because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him. I just
So look at her eye. You can see there's bruising around the eye.
like, I guess my vibe is like I hear him like in a bad mood.
And there's bruising under her eye and above.
I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an all-organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That's what that was my
That's
job.
cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country, and I'm trying to start a blog. I have a blog and stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed and didn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been like I don't know. He's like down there. I don't know. We've just been fighting all morning, and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because
he
of your OCD?
told me I needed to calm down. Yeah. But
So remember, it's her vehicle. It's her vehicle that he's not letting her in. And that this is their home, too. It's not just a car.
I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time. And he really stresses me out. And this is a rough morning.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay? I'm not going to be putting handcuffs on you. You obviously don't have any weapons. I'm going to get you into the air conditioning, let you take a breath, relax a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
All righty.
Okay, so that's her demeanor. Now let's take a look at Brian. Totally different demeanor. Not crying, calm, even smiling.
You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had a cell phone in her hand. That's why I was pushing her away. Because she wanted me. I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's just take a breather and let's not, go anywhere. Let's just calm down for a minute. She was getting really worked up, and then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys to me. So that.
And I do see some little scratches right here.
I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her away to go. Let's just take a minute, step back, and breathe. And we see if she got me with her phone.
Can I see your hand? Oh, you got a mark right here.
Oh, that's from a wire.
That's from a wire?
Yeah.
You want to tell me about hitting that curb?
Hitting the curb was her grabbing the wheel.
She grabbed the wheel?
Yeah. She said, I can't believe we're getting pulled over, and then she grabbed the wheel.
What about the speed? Did she take over the pedal on you?
I was going fast.
He asked him, what about the speed? He's like, did she take over the pedal on you? In other words, are you going to blame everything on Gabby?
I'm sorry. No, it's probably just the moment of like, I'm still shaking now. The adrenaline, seeing the lights flashing up, and then her gripping the wheel. So if I sped up, I'm sorry about that.
So his face, not crying, not sad.
Or if I was speeding beforehand.
Pleasant demeanor.
Yeah, it took quite a bit to catch up to you. So,
yeah. I'm sorry about that. We're just going into the park again to get water because we have a 6-gallon water container to fill up. So we're just grabbing water for the hike. Okay. And I was trying to keep everything calm and quiet because there's plans still to go for a hike. But then I'm really sorry about that.
Of course. Do me a favor. You want to go ahead and just take a seat right over here on the curb for me?
And if I was speeding, I'm sorry. I apologize.
You don't have anything in my pocket or anything like that, do you?
Nope.
Just the wallet? All right. And then, do you mind lifting your shirt so I can check your waistband? Turn around for me real quick. Perfect. Nothing. I just.
See, even a little laugh there. Not afraid. In contrast to her, I just wanted to show you so you guys could just see, what he's like in case you didn't. If you want to watch the whole video, I can link it for you in the description below. So let me check in with chat and let's please bring me your questions. I did cover this case from start to finish. Let me move myself. I don't want to be over Gabby. Okay. Let's see where we are. Hey, Tara. Welcome to my insane world, Tara. Tara, I thought you had a channel membership. And Jaws, oh yeah, we have a Reporter Room Facebook group if you would like to join us. And we were talking a lot about this case in the Facebook group too. Michelle says Gabby's parents are suing the Laundries. Well, they did. There was some kind of a settlement. Veronica said, I know they were on his Instagram page. Cheryl says, I thought they didn't get anything, the Petitos. I thought the Laundries got off with everything. There was a settlement. There was some kind of a settlement. They were taking Steve Bertolino to court, and the Laundries, and the Laundries got it thrown out the first time. They didn't the second time, and then they ultimately decided to settle. Probably they didn't want all of this going public, but they probably didn't want all of this going public. But here we are, it's public, and maybe there's more, I don't know. Then he said they have had to have known. He came home with Gabby's van and no Gabby. Petito knew too. Petite knew too. I don't know who Petite is. Knew too. I call BS on the whole gang. Are you talking about Bertolino, the lawyer? Bertolino, Denise? Pepper says, welcome to you, Tara. Thank you for joining. Yeah, thank you. Ninjas is welcoming you too. Cheryl does not believe them. Let me see. Tara says, yeah, I thought you were a member already. You just lost. That's okay. We'll take you for a member multiple times if you want to. Thank you for being here with us. This is our head mod, NJAS. Thank you to all of our mods and channel members and subscribers. Denise said, Jessica, so happy to see you back and feeling better. Thank you so much. Pepper said, well, my insane world, I'm glad you found it. Michelle said, not like the Wells and their daughter. No, we never got a resolution on that. We never got the body cam footage. Law enforcement responded to the scene. Why didn't we ever see body cam footage at least? I don't know why you would need to hold on to it. I would think that, at some point you could probably release that. I've always loved that photo of Gabby. This is my favorite picture of her. I have a lot of favorite pictures of her. I spent a lot of time with Gabby's pictures. And yeah, Summer Moon, Utah Wells. Thank you, NJAS. Dear precious Summer. Yes. This is our other head mod. This is 6 Cents Amelia. Glad you're here. She's lurking. You're listening and lurking. Tara says, Pepper had my backup account as the membership, and I was trying to get it back to my main account. Oh, dear. Gabby was sweet. It looks like she spent the last few months of her life constantly apologizing. That's really what I feel like. A one. Denise said, young women these days, unfortunately, need to be taught at younger age the warning signs of DV. Yeah, it's a cycle. So it's not all bad. You have good times and bad times. The thing is, you just have to walk away. I think that if Gabby's family had any idea, her mom, Nicole, said she didn't know that Gabby really played down the Moab traffic stop and what had happened to her. They got if you want to see close-ups of Gabby's face, you can see it on the Netflix documentary. Or if you, I didn't want to put it here, but she's got significant bruising at the Moab stop. And the Moab police only released one of the body cam footages initially. And it turns out there were more. And we found out, why maybe they didn't want to put all of it, because it was their call whether or not to arrest Bryan. They made a call and they decided not to. And they turned it around on Gabby and ended up blaming her for the DV incident. I had the police do the same thing to me when I called them because of my ex. They acted like I was the one who was crazy. Yeah, that's some gaslighting. Michael put a 1. So sad. Gabby's life could have been saved. Yeah, if they would, I wonder if he had been arrested, if that would have put an end to it, because then maybe Gabby would have told her mom, and maybe her mom would have flown her home, and maybe we would never have known Gabby's name other than she's a fantastic YouTuber, with 1 million followers. Yeah, it is heartbreaking. Cheryl saying, I pray there will be in law that law enforcement has the right to still investigate a person, even though the parents say they have a lawyer. Yeah. The boys club is alive and well in the South. Well, this was out West. But it's still alive in the South. Denjaz is shaking her head. I don't think Bryan's dead. Oh, no, he is. I think he is. He is. They found him. They were able to identify him. They would have been able to do DNA tests because his parents are alive. They did dental records initially. Yeah, they sided with Bryan and blamed Gabby. And then if you watch the Netflix, you can hear them deciding what to do because the protocol says they were supposed to arrest Bryan. Instead, they take him to a DV shelter. Let that sink in. That's where they put the perpetrator. And Gabby's told to go pay $4 or $5 to take a shower and she can sleep alone in her van. Tara says, I joined the Facebook group. I've been a member for a long time, but I was on my backup account. I just switched. Oh, good. Thank you. Oh, you meant Bertolino. That's what I thought. That's what I thought, Denise. Thank you for that. Yeah, exactly. And Jess says, thank you to all the mods for being awesome. Yes, thank you guys so much. Brother Mike said, yes, she was already falling into the pattern. She sure was. She absolutely was. So Tara's a new member. Thank you so much. I think we're going to leave it there, you guys. Unless you have any other questions, I'm happy to take questions if you guys want to come up and talk to me. I love spending time with you. I'll be happy to take questions if you have any. But I do believe she was falling into a pattern, like what Mike said. It is really sad. It is really sad. She should still be here. And if, there's so many what ifs. If Gabby had told her mom the truth of what was happening to her, I think that's the other big problem is all the secrecy behind these type of situations. Even the victims don't want to tell. And it's really normal to want to blame yourself if you're a victim in this situation. If you're a victim in this situation, it's really normal to blame yourself. And you know why? It's because then you feel like you have some control over the situation. If you can make it your fault, then you can feel like maybe you have some control over this situation. But the facts are you don't have any control. It's not your fault. And you don't have any control over what the perpetrator does. And the perpetrator can be male or female, and the victims can be male or female as well. So I agree with you, Mike. DV, yes, absolutely. Well, does anybody else have any other questions or comments you want to share with me? Is there anything I missed? I think I went through everything pretty well. I still want to dig into this some more. Let me know in the comment section below if you'd like me to continue deep diving this, because I feel like there's still more to unpack. I just wanted to give you guys everything. I was going to divide it up into multiple segments, but because so much came out in 2 and then even more came out in 3, I was like, I can't just do one. I can't just do an overview and then not get into the revelations. It just didn't feel right to me. If I had known that all the revelations were going to be packed into 2 and 3, I would have set this up the way I just did. So thank you so much, Enjaz, and for making everybody included. Thank you so much to all of our channel members and to our mods. Thank you so much. Our mods are the ones with the wrenches, and our channel members are the ones with the little check marks next to their name. If you would like to become a channel member and have your name appear in my video, hit the join button. It's next to the subscribe button. And subscribing helps me too. I can't get to 40,000 subscribers without you. Cheryl thinks Gabby was scared. I think she was too. Mike says, thank you for being here. And Jazz, thank you for being here. Thank you to all of our mods. And Jazz, our head mod, Amelia, our other head mod, and Mike. I don't know if you're interested. I had was asking to see if you wanted to be added as a head mod. Let me know in the next members only live stream. I rescheduled Bryan Kohberger tentatively for day after tomorrow, but if that hearing information comes out tomorrow, I will be going live with Bryan Kohberger tomorrow. Because I will want to be, if that hearing information gets unredacted, I'm going to want to go through it and go live. If it doesn't, I'll be going live on Thursday. Sue Joy says, still think Bryan Laundrie staged his camping trick and fled somewhere in hiding. Well, they found him, though. I just do want to rest assured on that. They did find him. Good night. Good night. All right. So be on the lookout. And I am going to do a follow-up to this. I just really feel like it needs to be done. I'm probably going to do like a mini documentary on this case, maybe from start to finish, just to close it out on the channel, because this was one of the first cases I covered. I spent so much time with Gabby's pictures and her mother's pictures, her father's pictures. That she has such a beautiful family, and it just also reminds all of us. There's her mom. It just reminds all of us that we need to look out for each other. And the reason I have this is because we were trying to figure out if Gabby was in that van when the door was closing. And so we found her flip-flops, and then somebody saw the hat and it was the same hat. So we were trying to make sure it was the same van that Red, White, and Bethune had actually found the van. And then we were all trying to figure out, was she in the van or not when they went by? And she was still alive. And there's our beautiful girl. She's all of our girls now. And I will please consider subscribing, and I will see you next time. Thank you for coming by today to spend a little time with me. I really always enjoy interacting with you, and I will see you Thursday. What's today? No, I'll see you Wednesday for a Bryan Kohberger live, unless new information comes out tomorrow, in which case I will see you tomorrow.